some of the comments that I had on it were there's no real trash collection plan, whether they're going to use a dumpster in an enclosure or just individual carts and things like that. Those are things we'll figure out ahead of time. The public or the amenities required for a PUD application, 10% dedication of open space, and 2 amenities. For the amenities, they're proposing barbecue shelters, 2 of them, instead of 2 different things, which is a little odd, but whatever. Snow storage is a little complicated on this one because there's a lot of numbers on that the city gets easements and pushes our snow from the streets onto these easements, and there appears double counting that a little bit with their snow storage. I think there's room on this property to possibly reduce the amount of hardscape a little bit and put some more snow storage in. Sidewalks along there to be consistent with the Lardo area concept plan to encourage a more villagey city streetscape in there. As you said, we've been working with the Parks and Rec Advisory Committee on this application. Their recommendation was to work with the applicant further, and as it gets further down the line, get cost estimates and an appraisal done, and include that in the agreement for an in-lieu contribution for future improvements. Most likely location that this would go to is the undeveloped parcel near Broken Ridge subdivision. We have a kind of oddly shaped parcel cut and running through the middle of that that we are hoping to get developed in the next couple of years in the park. And with that, I'll stand for your questions.
Any questions for Brian? Oregon?
Great. So this letter is not nearly as long as my Maverick letter. With their plat, I had a few of my standard comments of like adding control points to our control point system, adding some easements, different labels, and the requirements for the CAD drawings. No stormwater report was submitted with this application. They did have a drainage plan that showed some flow arrows, and most of it seems to stay on site, but they definitely need more work on the stormwater to show how it meets our standards. With the size of the property, they'll need a permit from DEQ likely because it's over an acre of disturbance if they develop the whole property. Brian mentioned the overlapping snow storage areas. Let's see. And then we are running a hydraulic analysis on their water infrastructure layout that was provided to us to see if they have adequate pressures with what's existing or if they will need to upsize anything to get the proper fire flows and pressures. So we don't have the results of that yet, but they're coming. And then I just have some information about where meter pits should be located when they're doing their final utility planning.
Commissioners, any questions? Morgan. Does seem like there's a few, quite not as many things, but there's quite a few things missing. So, I mean, I don't know if some of that would change the plans at all, or how commissioners feel on this moving forward without some of these items in place, like without the drainage. There's several things that sounds like are going to change. So we don't have some of them. I mean, you got to do a lot of the studies that could change it.
Yeah. And there's ways to do like stormwater retention underground. They just get costly. So there's ways to work around it. The easiest way is to make a detention pond and landscape it when you're trying to retain the flows in the storms. Yeah.
And that could change the layout.
Oh, I see, you're worried.
Yeah,
They haven't
so,
identified it at all, whereas normally it's just like, okay, yeah, we need to tweak it, but
yeah, it's not on here, so
it's gonna actually change the layout of the site.
a few things that could change that, so I'm,
Retention pond that you would change the,
but if needed,
if,
some of this, they just haven't been able to complete yet, so I guess my concern would be if it went too far along, then
you know,
approval, then all of a sudden it's changed from what we approved. Should that be at a staff level or it should be in front of our level? So I'm just wondering, your guys, well, maybe your thought, Brian, on,
Yeah, in my opinion, from the non-engineering drainage stuff that I actually understand, the changes that will be required are only going to move it in the more compatible with our code's direction than less. So I'm not too concerned about that, but the drainage management stuff may substantially alter it. So I'd say without actually.
well, yeah, without saying it.
Oh, this is a PUD.
I believe that area seems to be fairly high water. I remember size, yeah.
well, Brian, you're working with them on this. Your guidance is, I'd say, pretty good. Do you think that things are going to go worse or better, or as if they continue, if we continue this another time, or what?
From the applicant's perspective, they're always gonna prefer to get a decision
Yeah,
today, just so they're not paying a mortgage on the property for another month without a development. But yeah, like I said, I think the changes on my end are improve the architecture a little bit, reduce some of the hardscape to add more snow storage, things that we generally want to see anyway.
yeah.
So we could ask you to follow through on the administrative level
Yeah.
with those items. What about the engineering?
Yeah, the engineering is where I'm got a little bit more concerned.
Yeah.
But
I don't remember ever doing an approval. Have we done approvals based on, pending or contingent upon getting engineering approval for the, we could word it something like that and keep it moving.
Normally, we do have that as a condition.
I think, yeah. I think it's usually the first one,
Yeah,
unless we receive final,
we had like some more of it done prior to then, didn't we?
typically, at least like a draft report, and plan.
It seems like when we've done that, it's been more for design review though, not for PUD. But I was wondering, I was just looking at this, so one of the requirements for PUD to meet is the variances from basic zone requirements must be warranted. And is there anything that would change that would, you know what I'm saying? Like, that if they were to change the site plan even a little bit, that we could move into that zone of like, oh, all of a sudden now there's variances or anything?
They're not currently requesting any deviations from
The code?
code. It is a PUD because of the size of it.
Okay. And we do have one of the requirements is that the final plan conforms to the preliminary plan.
Yeah.
So I guess,
Yeah, that's true too.
I guess I'm comfortable moving forward with conditions that are stated.
Yeah.
I want to take a second to read through them again.
Morgan, you don't really see anything that really jumped out to you in concern?
I think they could probably find somewhere to put it with all their setbacks, showing that all the water could drain to it is like another question, and if it'll interfere with other utilities, and if there's already like a drainage facility there or a swale there existing. It's just, there's lots of options that they could do. It's just how much they want to change the site plan to accommodate a storage facility or a detention pond. And I'm not sure what that sizing would be since I don't have any of that information.
I could probably be okay with it, just as long as it didn't have any substantial changes. It's within their, say, substantially change what we're potentially approving.
I mean, basically, approval, and that's all it is.
No, this is a public hearing, so let's go to that real quick before we forget about that. So this is a public hearing, so we'll open it to public hearing. Is there anybody online or on the phone that would like to speak regarding this application? May he need to hit *6. Anybody online or on the phone that would like to speak? All right, hearing none, is there anybody here that would like to speak? Okay. Well, we'll close the public hearing. So good thing we did that. At least we're official.
You're doing good.
Okay, questions, commissioners, more than what we just talked about, thoughts?
I gave the applicant.
Oh, yeah, applicant, would you like to respond to any of our questions? Chad?
Yeah, well, I think the only thing I would say is, Morgan, you're spot on. There's a lot of different ways to take care of stormwater, and we're not entirely sure how much is going to be surface, how much is available for subsurface, until we get into the full body of design. Obviously, those don't become apparent. I would say that if the site did change or was necessary to change, I think it would be necessary to come back through the same procedures, which I don't believe they would have any objection to, which I don't believe is going to happen anyway. So, like I said, we're not objecting to any of these conditions at all.
Any questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you, Chad.
Yep.
Yeah, so I think my biggest thing is just if there was any substantial change to the plan based on all the engineering, that would come back in front of us. Major. I don't know. I don't have to describe major, we can just say major?
You're good.
Okay. Any other questions, concerns, or are we open for a motion? We can do it.
Okay. I would make a motion that we recommend PUD 2201 and SUV 2205 be approved, subject to the conditions of approval.
There's design review too.
Well, we'll do that
Oh, yeah,
separately.
separate, okay.
So that's the motion.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve PUD 2201 and subdivision 2205. All in favor?
All right.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, that's to the city, recommendation to the city.
Subject to the conditions
Listed in the.
Yeah, with,
Okay. And then I would make a motion that we approve design review 2202.
subject to the conditions.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, thank you very much, Chad.
Hey, thank you, guys.
All right. Now we've got other items, so Commissioner Tunnel's seat.
I think I was late in sending you Austin Brown's letter, but you have seen his letter of interest before, and I popped it in the back. And he is right here if you would like him to talk at you about himself. We also received 2 others that are from city residents, so the priority goes to the impact area applicant for the city to ensure proper representation.
Okay, Austin, if you'd like to tell us a little bit about yourself and why you want to have this fun stuff with.
Big introduction tonight.
That's for last. You guys scared me away with the long ones. So. Austin Brown, born and raised McCall, Idaho. Left for a number of years to see the rest of the world and started having kids and came back to McCall. It's not really a better place, I think, to raise kids and be part of the community. I'm currently a builder in McCall, so firsthand dealing with concerns of growth in the area. And I think it's important with my perspective to come in and help review that and make sure we grow this area in a thoughtful way. I think there's been a lot of things in the past that we may regret, and building a team to move forward in a way that we all agree and is good for the generations to come is important. I think that's probably the main reason I'm here.
Right, great. Any questions for?
Oh, your office is right across from mine.
Has he been a good neighbor?
That's the question.
You must have just moved in. I'm across the parking lot from you.
Oh, nice.
There's no sign on my door because I don't have a sign permit.
Take care of that tonight.
How do you pronounce the name of your company?
Soigné.
Soigné.
Yep. And it's
Glad I didn't try it.
Yeah, it's actually kind of fun to try it. When we first did it, it was a little bit of a regret, and it's turned into kind of an ongoing joke. But it's French for attention to the finer detail.
Nice.
Really?
I've worked for enough companies over the years that I didn't agree with the way things were being built. And that was our full objective, is to create things that will last longer and are thoughtful. And that's where we got it.
How long you been building?
I was born and raised in it. So from about the time my dad started bringing me to work, I've been building. And he always told me, he said, don't you dare get into this business. So I went out and I've been a finance manager for a company, tech sales, several other sales jobs. And one day I was sitting behind a desk and told myself, I'm going to go back to building. I remember calling my dad and he told me I was crazy. But I enjoy it. I'm outside all day and I get to build beautiful things. So.
Great. Any other questions?
No.
Great, thank you.
Awesome.
Now I'm trying to remember, do we do a decision on that tonight or? I've been recommended to the council.
Counts.
Yeah. Commissioners. Oh, that's right, commissioners, because it's in the impact.
Mm-hmm, yep.
And I know we have to pick first on an impact person or somebody that lives in the impact zone before we can consider city residents, so, and he's the only one.
Well, I remember Callahan, trying to think his first name. Always thought that he had good questions, he had good, what about this, whether it's snow storage or whatever, and because he was in the business, and I think that I don't think we have anybody that's in the building trades right now.
Tom's a construction
Tom.
manager.
Oh, is he? Okay. I've never met Tom.
He shows up on the screen.
Yeah, well,
We got our group here, but then the ones on the screen, I haven't met any name either. I don't even, who they, I know who they are, but yeah, it'd be nice to have a meeting where everybody showed up one time, I guess, but it's always not possible, so.
Well, I think he has the qualifications and knowledge and definitely been around the area, seen different things. So open for
Is it a motion?
Yes.
motion for a recommendation to the,
I move
County.
to recommend Austin Brown to the P and Z Commission for the Impact Zone.
Second,
Not quite.
Wait.
Board of County Commissioners.
got to
please.
recommend it
Oh,
to
yeah.
the county commissioners to
County
appoint him for.
Commissioners. Recommend to the county commissioners.
second right here, yeah.
We got a first and a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? All right, approved. So, they'll let you know, I guess, when the next commissioners or county commissioners meeting, it'll be in front of them for the final.
Okay.
So I
Go
guess,
on a field trip to Cascade with Brian.
Yeah.
You can go in separate vehicles, that's allowed.
yeah, right, we don't want to scare you away too soon.
Oh, I did it. It's a lot of fun. Don't worry about it. You'll have a good time.
Awesome.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
You did
Appreciate it.
it.
Thank you. You guys have a great evening.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
All right, looks like we got a couple signs, and I'm looking at an old agenda because there's signs and then there's administrative something.
Also look for your signs.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I got-
Donna's still with us.
Oh, that's right.
And technically it's still only 8:25. We are going to learn about the city's ADA transition plan and what that may mean. So, Don, take it away.
Hey everyone, good evening. Don Kostelek with Vitruvian Planning, and Brian, kudos to him. He said I'd be on around 9 o'clock, so you guys are 35 minutes ahead of time for this evening. I do have a short presentation on this. It's just information only, that if I can share the screen, it just to give some of the background of where we are and what we are doing with that. Let me make sure that. Can you guys, that's the wrong screen. Oh no, you should be able to see that. Is that okay?
Nope.
Okay. So I'm with Vitruvian Planning. We're a two-person consulting shop based in Boise, and we're working on the city's ADA transition plan update in coordination with the statewide nonprofit, the Idaho Access Project, as well as a lot of the field work that was done was from students at Lewis Clark State University and a professor up there that has worked out the online apps to do this kind of field and data collection. An ADA transition plan and self-assessment, what is that thing and why the long title and why another plan of this nature? Well, any entity with 50 or more employees that is a public agency is required to have a self-assessment and transition plan in place. And if you weren't involved when McCall did their last one, and the date is escaping me, this is kind of an update and a modernization of that. And what does that mean? One, you're far ahead of most other Idaho cities of your size and characteristics because most of them don't even have one to update. So the fact that you're updating one, kudos to your city leadership on that front. There's a reason there's two parts to this. Generally, it's just called a transition plan, but this is technically it's a self-assessment and transition plan. And what we do in the self-assessment phase is the city of McCall assessing itself from its projects, its programs, its policies, and those kind of things, and how they relate to and provide opportunities for people with disabilities. And so for something like a sidewalk or a bathroom in a park, I think most of you can probably see the relevance of that, and you've certainly seen design changes over the years to help meet the needs of people with disabilities. But on the more technical side, there's things like, for example, at the bottom of this agenda that we're on, it talks about if you do need access to this meeting, please give us 48 hours to do that. And that's for things like if someone who was deaf or hard of hearing needed to have a sign language interpreter at your meeting to be part of that. So that's the other part of the assessment is how well do your policies and programs and parameters provide for that. If somebody with a disability or a disabled child needed access to a reading program at the library, how would the city respond to that? So that's both the infrastructure side and the non-infrastructure side. With that, the findings we get from all of this are what ultimately comes out in a transition plan. And the reason it's called that is it's the city's plan to transition its infrastructure and facilities, its programs, and its policies to both meet requirements of the Americans with Disabilities Act and in many instances go beyond them. And I'll show you the image at right is the screenshot, for example, of going in and assessing the ADA features of a bathroom. And in this case, it's at your senior center. And that means things like the height of the sink, the handrails you see on there, as well as using a pressure gauge to make sure that the flusher does not require more than 5 pounds of pressure, pounds per square inch to flush it. That's what the students at Lewis Clark State got to do for all of your facilities this summer. Yeah, go ahead. Use a question.
Nope, don't think so.
Okay. So self-assessment, we are in that phase right now. The field crews were out for the most of the month of July, physically measuring things at the city of McCall's public buildings, your parks, your sidewalks, your curb ramps, your pathways, and that is now all sitting in an online database so we can start ordering that into, say, buckets, so to speak, to understand the nature of things that need to be upgraded for ADA compliance. We are starting, and I will be up there in 2 weeks to do some interviews with your department heads or key people within the city's departments to get a better understanding of things like how would they handle a request from someone with a disability to attend a meeting or take part in a city's program. We're doing things like reviewing your own zoning and subdivision policies to make sure things that are happening through that are giving the city the best return. For example, if a sidewalk is fronting a street and it has a driveway with a cross slope that maybe was built 30 or 40 years ago, but doesn't meet current ADA compliance requirements, it would be our recommendation, if the policy doesn't exist, to require as a condition of approval an upgrade to meet the current standards, just as you would if they were renovating a building and needed to upgrade door heights, drinking fountains, and restrooms to meet that. We also look at things like, for example, the bottom left of this is looking at how what's called alt text is done for city publications and other things. And this is so a person with vision disabilities can hold their cursor or use a screen reader program over an image, and it will tell them what is there and give that descriptive text. So right now, the city's website, the city/access McCall is where we have this, and we're currently undergoing the public survey portion of that. And it's asking people general questions about any access or barriers they have in accessing City of McCall facilities or programs. And so I would encourage you to go take a look at it, just because it's for people with disabilities. It can also be things that people might have to overcome if, say, you have an older parent that comes to town and they have some mobility issues and other things, because when we look at the percentage of people in the population who have a disability, A, it's pretty high, and B, at some point in our lives, we might experience that either permanently or temporarily. We are sending this out through some different avenues. One, to get people who obviously live in the city of McCall, but we also recognize that the services you provide means people are coming there from other parts of Valley County, and certainly you have visitors, and we want to know the things they may be coming across, but we would look to give priority in this plan to recommendations for those based on people who live there first before we address certain other things in the priorities of that. So the transition plan itself, we'll get through this self-assessment. We'll have a series of recommendations, and we'll come back with a draft transition plan. And going back to the main premise of this is how you can transition your system and services into compliance with ADA. And so for things like a sidewalk, a park bathroom, a building, those are definitely hard infrastructure investments. And our goal is to prioritize things based on the degree of public use of them. So for example, your library is going to have more public access than, say, the counter at your public works building. And so if both of them have equally the same type of issues from a physical infrastructure standpoint and ADA perspective, it's most likely that the library would be a higher priority if you were going to invest your first dollars in that. The same could be said for, say, a sidewalk or a curb ramp on one of your major streets, you know, like Highway 55, versus a sidewalk or a curb ramp that might be similarly in a inaccessible condition, but in a residential neighborhood. So that's how we get at priorities. Other things that we'll get at in terms of online information and policies, those are things that can definitely be updated or amended in a short time frame versus the physical infrastructure that could take some time to do that. So when we get into those other things, this is just an example of what we'll be reviewing. On the bottom right, you know, if you've never seen on the city's website, there is a specific complaint request and grievance process, so people can access that and go through that. We'll both be reviewing those policies, recommending any changes, or at least documenting them and deeming them in compliance substantially with things like ADA. So I know it's been a long night. Our final product, we hope to come back to you with a recommendation for adoption that would go to the city council. We would expect to do this probably in the January timeframe. We have a work session before the city council already scheduled in mid-December to go over the draft recommendations. And so certainly encourage you to go take the survey. If you are with an organization or would like to be interviewed as a stakeholder for this, we are also scheduling both some in-person and online interviews. So if you or you know someone that might want to be a part of that, please get in touch with Brian and he can forward me the contact information and we'll reach out to them to get them scheduled. With that, I'll stand for any questions.
There's any questions for Don?
No.
Okay, Don, thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you for your service and commitment. I know it's been a long night, so hopefully you get home and get some rest. I appreciate it.
All right, thanks. All right. And we got a couple signs and then a violation?
Sort of, yes.
Sort of?
I don't actually have the list, but I can read it with my mouth and then put it in the minutes. But we have 1.5 signs. I haven't set the Madison approval officially just yet, but that's on the list for tomorrow. So I figured it would be includable at least as a picture exhibit. Huckleberry Gardens, they switched out the background color from the white in this first image on the screen to a more creamy color, and accidentally Jim went ahead and installed the wrong one, thinking that the invoice letter that I sent was the approval permit, but he's like, I'll fix it, I swear. So he's gonna put the other one back up, or he's soon. But they also repainted the facade of the building a whitish color, but they're keeping the portion under the eaves the traditional brown and the cape more. So I kind of missed and then we have Amherst Madison. And they are also doing an off-white with a turquoise black on top. They also entitled their window signage and have agreed to turn off the backlit property listings that are starting to pop up all over town at real estate offices. So I'm trying to catch up with all of those and not turn those on. They can exist, but I need them to not be on. And then on my list, all of the temporary signs now that officially the emergency order of COVID is, I think, gone with the wind. I sent letters to Drift West for sandwich boards, A1 Heating, Les Schwab, Franz Whitty, the Old Town Market for their chicken wing sign, Pine Top for the QR codes, High Mountain Nursery for a sandwich board, Miners for the taco board, and I'm actually meeting with them on Friday about a potential permanent sign that's also going to help provide a little bit better traffic direction for the vehicles going in instead of the flimsy little green thing that sits out there sometimes in the middle of the highway. Scandia's live music sign, the McCall Made sign that ends up on the sidewalk sometimes, Chapala and Brunchette, because that building doesn't get any extra signage, Alpine Pantry, Zipley, the thrift store, the other thrift store, Amherst Madison picked up their sign when they applied for their sign. And then I sent feather flag violation letters to the tattoo shop, C&M Backcountry, and SRB. And I gave them all until the 9th to voluntarily figure it out before I show up and be a little bit more spicy. But they all have fairly valid / interesting / I find them interesting complaints, and that with how hard it is to hire any employees and how hard it is to advertise in town that they do need to hire people, or that they have weird hours because of not being able to hire anyone. They all express that I don't know how to show this in the form of permanent signage when it's always changing and nobody reads the newspaper and this and that and the other. And I said, well, the sign code hasn't been touched since 2014. So you can always express that there may be need to take another look at that and formulate any new possibilities for flexibility in the face of all of the adversity we face. So I've yet to hear, I don't think a city council meeting has passed since those discussions have taken place, but there is interest in taking another look at sign code, specifically in terms of hiring issues, flexibility with hours, and ways to list that outside of the sign code or a little bit more flexibly. So that was the feedback I've gotten so far. If you want to add to my list, you may. We also have Sublime Electric on the list for more than the strange van that's become a sign on the site.
It's pretty tough. Not very big, but you're awful tough, I'll say.
I kind of missed the sign that was there now that I have a van instead. Win some, lose.
All right. No, good report. With that, it looks like we've come to the end of the agenda. Looking for a motion to,
I got this one, 8:40. Motion to adjourn.
the first and a second to adjourn. All in favor? Aye. We are adjourned. Yeah.